choices on where to work. And I think then processes will be very important to have that transparency at hand.
Mm-hmm. I fully agree, especially also on the younger generation. And it's already a matter of fact, by the way, many. Hello, everyone. It's me again, Joseph Blondeau, welcoming you to the newest episode of our Women in BPM series. I hope everyone is doing great. And I also hope that you know by heart what the series is all about. But as we get more and more followers of this interview series, I will give you a short recap. So we started this Women in BPM journey at the beginning of 2022 to support diversity and women in tech in our very own expertise area, which is business process management and process mining. And we would say that diversity is not a question mark anymore, or that it shouldn't be, but we see many women gaining space in tech industries, in management positions. But at the same time, there is still a gender gap, which is confirmed by the stats I just checked. Women currently hold only around a quarter of tech-related jobs, and this percentage has actually decreased over the last 2 years. And we probably all know why. So that's why leading organizations are setting up, or in many cases, they are proceeding with diversity initiatives. And luckily, we see more and more women acting in BPM roles, in leading roles, and they are proving their capacity to lead global projects, to bring their companies to operational excellence. They can enable communication, change management, and that throughout the whole organization. Doing so, they are paving the way for other women to take action now and to inspire the newer generation to just do it. So in this series, in this Women in BPM interview series, is basically the series of those women. So we want to give every one of those a voice, and we want to get to learn their journey, get insights into their success stories. And we also want to understand challenges and why women are good at BPM. It is a real pleasure for me to welcome you today, Marloes, to my series. So thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. And Marloes is now a business process management solution architect at Philips. And thus, of course, she perfectly fits to our Women in BPM interview series. And the first time I met, I need to tell that story, we could have talked, I would say, for hours. And it's simply because we share more than just one passion. So processes, but also sustainability. And sustainability is also a big driver in her life. And I just checked, she was working also in previous role as a project manager for sustainable purchasing at a Dutch ministry. But I think she will tell us a little bit more about this afterwards. So welcome, Marloes, first.
Thank you.
So I guess not everyone knows you today, so it will be great if you can give us some kind of a short introduction into who you are, what you do, and how you came to your current position.
Yes, of course. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me again. My name is indeed Marloes, very well pronounced. Marloes Jongewaard. For people who don't understand, my name is like a combination of Marie and Louise, so actually a little bit French too.
And I love
that. Yes, thank you. So yeah, indeed, I work with Philips in the BPM Solution Architect role. I started doing that. Well, I joined Philips 2.5 years ago now. Time flies, and I have moved to the position that I currently hold last January. Before I was doing something quite different. I should just mention I used to work for the Dutch government. And before that, I was working for the European Commission for a while. That's also where my background lies. So I first studied European history and then European studies more generically. So yeah, when you study that subject, it's kind of the dream to either become a researcher in history, which I didn't really see myself doing, or work for the government, either national or international. So I managed to do that. And yeah, I think it's quite difficult that once you achieve what you thought you wanted and you're there and that it's not exactly what you expected from it, it's quite difficult to break out and to decide to do something else. But in the end, I did do that. So when I was working on that sustainable purchasing, I realized that I really liked the concrete aspect of it, because there was a tool and an IT aspect involved there. And I really liked that, because by the end of the month, we'd say, oh, before the tool could only do this, and now it has extra capabilities, we have more users. And I found out that I liked that a lot more than I expected. Then I quit, and I took some time to figure out what I wanted to do, which I think is a very millennial thing to do. So I walked dogs, I ran an Airbnb in Amsterdam for a while, I did a lot of different things, and then I ended up at Philips.
That's really exciting.
Yes, it was scary, but exciting.
I'm trying to find a connection. So walking dogs and Airbnb is, and your previous job has something to do with, well, doing good things for the society, or being in touch with people, basically. So you had a lot of contact with many different people, right?
Yes, I did, and that's also what attracted me in the role that I now hold within Philips, and that's also why they decided to hire me back then, even though I had a bit of a different profile, because they really needed someone to bring people on board, to train new end users, to make connections between strategy and the practical sides of working with the tool. Mm-hmm. So yeah, surprisingly, I really enjoyed it, and sometimes you just have to broaden your horizons a little bit, I guess, to find what you really like to do.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that you said it's a very millennium thing. That's true indeed, and it's important to take the time to reflect on what you want to do and what you really like. Was there a specific point of time when you were thinking and having that kind of a break, which was not a break? Was there a specific time, or a key moment when you said, processes, that could be it?
Yeah, so I've always done a lot of different things at the same time. So I also write historical fiction next to my job still. So I publish stories. And I used to be a medical assistant in an eye clinic when I was studying history. And that's the first time I started working with standardization and electronic systems, improving the ways of working, because we moved to a bigger building, and I really enjoyed that. So I think what was very enlightening when I took that break is that they all seemed like different things, but then I started reflecting and thought, oh, actually, it's maybe not so strange that if you like history, you also like innovation, because they're two different sides of the same coin. And I really like seeing big structures. I think that's also what you do when you study history. So you see all these separate events, and then you build a narrative out of it, and you think, oh, well, this military campaign didn't work because they didn't have any horses, or this worked very well because their capitals were super well structured. So I've always been interested in these really nerdy kind of patterns everywhere. So I think processes are perfect.
Cool. And in the end, innovation makes its history, whether it's successful or not. This is something that we in the end learn from history, what went wrong, and why was that happening this way. So yeah, I like it. Is this so you said different things. So you were talking about patterns, you were talking about standardization, but also these communication things. Are these the kind of patterns that you really like about processes? Is there another thing that you really love about that?
Yeah, so I think for me, also, as you just said, the patterns over history, they're the patterns of how humans behave and how they organize themselves. So I think it all comes back to the same thing. It's how humans get together, work as a group, how they identify themselves when they look around, thinking, oh, we live in the same city, oh, we work in the same field, we are a country, things like that. So those are also things that I find super interesting about business and how corporations work, and cultural differences within a multinational, which are all factors I think that are quite important at companies such as Philips, but in many modern workplaces where we work from all over the world, from different locations. We have different backgrounds in terms of the education that we have, the cultures that we come from, our mother tongues. So yeah, all these kind of human aspects of producing something and of moving forward really interest me.
And that put people in the front, basically, which is fully true, because without the people, well, yeah, you can have an IT process, but in many cases you need the people, you need the workforce to make processes work, at least when we talk about corporations. But as I just said, there's one side, yeah, it's the people, but there's the other side, which is the IT. So, and you mentioned before you had some contact in your previous project with a specific tool, and that was the reason why you decided also to not to go only for processes, but also this this love of IT came with that.
Yeah. So, no, I think what it was a bit of a tricky project to take on at the time, because I came from a policy background, mainly communication. I did spokesperson service stuff, and this had a technical aspect to it. So it was a project listing that had been open for a while, I think, because people were a bit scared to get into the IT field. I thought, well, I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work out, I'm sure I'm not the only one working on this, so everyone will have their strengths. We'll see. Yeah, in the beginning it was a little bit tough, because in their eyes it was, of course, also quite a surprise that someone with no experience in this field was coming to connect policy to that IT tool. And then I realized that it's super powerful if you bring those things together, and if you make sure that the IT component and the processes and the ways of working all tie in neatly together, that you can create very powerful overviews and opportunities to improve. And that's what we did. So when we started talking to our end users to see how we could improve the tool itself, they also started being more enthusiastic to work with it. So we got more data, and then we could report out to the parliament, to local city councils, etc. Which, of course, again, gave another push for people to really start using this. And then it just naturally grew bigger and bigger. And in the end, all governmental organizations started working with it, and it became a standard. So yeah, that really encouraged me and made me enthusiastic in a way that I had not really experienced since I had been working in that eye clinic, because there as well, I think you saw a very tangible result of your work. And that made me very passionate about my job, that combination of the content and what you were working on. It's also what I really like about Philips, is the products that we make and the goals of the company to really make the world a healthier place for lots of people. But combining that with the IT aspect, so you also see the fruits of your labor, that really got me into this field. And also, my brother and his wife are both very techy people, and yeah, they work in data field, data analytics. They're way more mathematical than I am, but also the way that they were talking about what they were doing at their job and the actual results that they got motivated me more to go that extra mile and think, okay, I can do that. Just dive into it. You'll learn.
And in the end, it's true, you learned. And yes, it's funny because there's so many parallels between you two different, on the paper, it looks so different, yeah? Sustainable source procurement for a ministry and processes at Philips sounds so different, but when you depict them, they basically are about very diverse ways of areas of action. Yeah, you were talking about data, you are talking about processes, of course, IT, communication, networking. So it's a lot of different areas that you need to manage, to balance, to learn, of course. And do you think here being a woman is an advantage? Doesn't matter for you?
Yeah. I was thinking about these kind of things before we started the interview. Growing up, my mom works with the police, and she's a super tough woman. So growing up, I never really considered these kind of things, because both my parents and my grandparents, when there was a job to be done, they were like, okay, who's the best person to do this? And then that person did it. So just last week, my father came over here with a tiny toothbrush because he's great at cleaning bathrooms, and he was just there with the tiles. So I didn't really grow up, I think, in that sense, with very traditional patterns. So it was later that I realized that, certain things are expected of me, and I don't think I have such strong expectations engraved in my own mind, because it's not really what I was surrounded with. Then, of course, I went to study history. I was very interested in military campaigns and stuff like that, which is not typically where you find a lot of women either. So I was always used to being kind of the odd one out, which I think in itself can be both an advantage and a disadvantage, because when you stick out, people notice you. You can also be an underdog because they think, oh, she'll not know what she's saying. And then suddenly when you say something that makes sense, it can also surprise people. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough question for me.
That's good, because well, we are doing this series which is called Women in BPM, but in the end we are talking about diversity, and it doesn't matter if it's male, female. It's just about who you are, or being different, or acting a specific way which is your own. And your answer leads more to the diversity in BPM, basically. So you are what you are. You have learned what you've learned, and you are acting a specific way, which is specific to you and which makes you different to the others. And it probably doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. And so for that, I really love that statement, because this is something that we also see in many situations. So it's not specifically about being female or male, or being from this region or from these others. It's also the way you think and the way you were raised. So I guess this is a pretty exciting one. Thank you for that, and thanks for sharing that and being so honest with the question. Looking at processes again, because this is of course one of our topic. Yeah, you were talking about your parents and your family. So I'm wondering, how would you explain process management, or what is a process to your grandfather, maybe?
Yeah, so I like to compare everything to building an IKEA wardrobe. Because it's something that most people, they immediately have an image. They see this booklet, and when you start opening the booklet, you're like, oh, so many screws and so many steps. How am I going to do this? So what I usually tell my friends is that we try to find a way that everyone who opens that manual understands what they are doing, but that it's also, there's a context. So you know what the closet will look like in the end, you know what steps you have to undertake, and then you can go further into that booklet, all the way from the image of what the closet is supposed to look like at the end, down to this screw needs to go there. That's the metaphor that I like to use.
I like this analogy, but in the end, what do you do with all the fails that we sometimes have with building these furniture's part? So was the description of the process wrong? Was the way of explaining the process wrong? Was the reader not thinking about it and not reading the process the right way? What would you say?
Yeah, so usually then I explain why it's a pretty complex job that involves a lot of people who have to think about how to explain it in the best way, what the end result should look like, how to document it, how to make sure that people whose native tongue is different from what's in the booklet also understand it, that it looks visually pleasing, that you end up with what you expect it to end up, and that it's constantly evolving because your company is changing, realities are changing. Never a dull moment.
I love that. Also nice, yeah. So now we already got to the process topic, but still I would like to make a short break and have this small game that we have in the middle of our interview series, which is the This or That game. Do you want to play that with me?
Of course.
Then the first one is an easy one. Oh, well, maybe not. Is EPC or BPMN?
I'd have to say BPMN. But that's based on my limited experience. So I would be pretty open to learn more about EPC.
All right, then I will give you that at some point then. That's good. As we were talking about the topic of sustainability before, maybe a different one. I never used that one. It's special to you. Glass or plastic?
Glass.
then based on what you said, yeah, the story you told us about your previous experience, would you say policies or communications?
Communications.
Then bike or walking?
Walking.
Why?
Which is very un-Dutch.
Yeah, that's exactly why the question where I ask why. I would imagine you on your bike, like everyone.
I have 2 bikes.
Okay.
But I also have a dog, and I really like to go on walks and experience a bit and look around, see the ducks. And I think once you're on the bike, probably especially because I'm Dutch, I go very quickly, and then I don't really notice nature or people around me. So yeah, that's why.
Okay, so I'm glad I didn't ask you car or bike, because then it would have been bike probably.
Yeah, well, yes, ideally, yes, but we all have our weaknesses, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's also an interesting question. It also depends on where you want to go and how fast and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. A last one for you, also based on your on what you're doing. Order to cash or procure to pay?
Procure
That's a
to pay,
tough
which
one.
is because of my previous experience. I think it's something that's close to my chest.
Okay, understand. Thank you. Thanks for taking the challenge. And now I would like to get more into the sustainability topic, and also to learn a bit more about your inspirations and about you in your career. But one of the things I would like to know is, well, Philips is a big company, is working on sustainability. You have a lot of processes. And I'm pretty sure that you are looking at processes also from the sustainability lens. So do you see any big challenges for businesses when it comes down to sustainable processes? How do you see the role of processes in sustainability matters?
Yeah, so while I was working at the ministry that we talked about earlier, I was also one of the chairs of the think tank of the people at the ministry, and we started an initiative to make the ministry itself be more sustainable. So not the policies of the ministry, but just the canteen and how the garbage was handled, etc. And what was very surprising to me is that the most sustainable option is not always what you think it is. So, for example, with cups, we challenged everyone to collect all the cups for a week just to see how many cups departments used. And then we saw that the departments that we expected to be the most sustainable, like the agricultural one, actually used more paper cups than industrial ones where we thought, oh, these people are always in a hurry because they have a lot of meetings, so probably they throw them away more. So that was already surprising because that was not the pattern that you would expect. But then we started talking to these people, like, why did you expect this? And we started reading into it, talked to some experts. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was not always better to wash your cup every time as opposed to recycling them. And of course, it depends on the material. It depends on how many times you use it. It depends on so many different factors. So what I really took away for that is that the more information you have, the better the choices are that you can make. And that's still, you will still need to make choices, and you cannot always, especially in an environment that needs to make profit, that has health and safety standards to consider, you cannot always make the most sustainable choices. For example, in a hospital, there's always going to be safety above sustainability, which is quite a challenge, for example, in surgery rooms, which I remember from working at the eye clinic as well. But the more you know, the better informed you are to take certain decisions. So I think that their processes and documenting well and knowing what kind of decisions you can take are really key in being more aware. And I think that's really the first step to being more sustainable. I also see this in my personal life. I've been a vegetarian since I was a small kid, not because of my belief, but because I couldn't stomach it. And back in the 90s, it was a disaster. I remember there was one vegetarian burger at the supermarket, and it was super spicy, and I didn't like it. So what's a Dutch girl supposed to do, eating potatoes and mashed vegetables? And now it has become so easy, and I notice also that people who eat meat, they at least know that these kind of products exist here, which is still very different in Southern European countries, certain parts of the world. It's just still like, oh, do you eat chicken, or do you eat, what can you eat? And I think that's a very specific example, but just the fact that you are aware that there's an option to make another decision, I think is a first step. And for companies, I think it's going to be very important in the upcoming decade to have this kind of information available, not just for customers, but also for employees, because I think especially the generation that comes after me, when they start joining the workforce, they will take these kind of factors into account when they choose an employer, especially because they now have so many choices on where to work. And I think then processes will be very important to have that transparency at hand.
Mm-hmm. I fully agree, especially also on the younger generation. And it's already a matter of fact, by the way. Many young people choose their company where they want to work based on such criteria. And there it doesn't help to say, well, we are having big programs. They also really want companies that act the way they say it, and not just state some big things and don't do too much. So also there, as you mentioned, staying at the surface of the things is not enough. So you really need to deep dive into the topic, into the processes, basically.
Yep.
They give you the information about what is the best way to take right now, and maybe to rethink that after a while. And looking at everything you just said, you mentioned also that processes in that case help to create transparency. I would also argue that it helps to support change, to enable people in the company, because like you mentioned with your furniture example, this is a way to make things happen. This is a way to tell people, okay, this is the way you should act right now, because it is supporting our sustainability initiative.
Yeah, I was reading a very interesting geeky book over the weekend about how the accumulation of wealth in communities worked throughout the centuries across the world. Mm-hmm. And well, of course, that's heavy stuff to read, so I didn't manage to finish the entire book. But in the first chapter...
Thank you for saying that. I feel better now.
No, I also watched a lot of Netflix, but okay. So in the first chapter, they made a connection between rule of law and economic activity, and I think that ties in with what you just said. So if you have documented the ways in which you want to operate, whether it's a law or it's a process or it's more informal guidelines, that also helps you to move in a certain direction, because people know what the basis is and how to take it from that. And I think that's very important for change and innovation to have that in place.
Yeah. Oh, that's also a very nice parallel. Yeah, I like that. Indeed, that's true, and that was probably also true through history. Indeed. And that brings me to the next point, because we were just talking about planets, basically, when we talked about sustainability. And as we both know, shared value and sustainability is also about people. So how do you see this challenge from a process perspective in corporations, or specifically at Philips? How do you think companies can solve that and support a better better economy for the people too?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, because you have the possibility to really make changes on a structural level, in value chains, in processes that affect several continents, lots of people, lots of different transactions that can have a varying impact on the environment. yeah, like you said before, we are both very passionate about this topic. And I think it's very nice if people have this feeling on their own that they want to contribute something. But on the other hand, especially after having been in that position at the ministry, I also feel like it's big institutions, companies, governments that also create the infrastructure in which we operate. And then, of course, you will still have people who are way more conscious about it than others, people who make more of an effort than others. But I think that's fine, as long as the system in which you operate enables you to be as good to the planet as you can or want, because it's also depending on your circumstances. Like, I can go to the supermarket and think, oh, today let's take these sustainable apples, but that's not the case for everyone across the planet. So yeah, I really think that's the way that the biggest change is going to happen. And yeah, I'm enthusiastic to work on that and to make a wave there.
Also, that's funny, because it's kind of, you were reading my thoughts. I was also thinking in that direction while I was asking the question. But the fact that you just mentioned, and I really like that, is that we have, as people, we have a responsibility, and where we can and who can should take that responsibility. But at the same time, indeed, we have organizations, corporations, institutions, United Nations goals, etc., all setting up these this environment where we can act, basically, and somewhere it meets in the middle, and that supports each other. So this is something I also really like. Well, as you said, we're both passionate about the topic, and while I'm working on sustainability, there's also something that really gives me a lot of hope, is that even on the investor side, we see that sustainability is gaining big momentum, and we see BlackRock giving advice to their to their participants that they should be sustainable, they should take sustainable actions, because in the end, investor will only continue to invest in those companies that are working on their sustainability and trying to improve. And that leads me to I would say on that topic to the final question is also, do you think processes can help companies to prove their sustainability to specific target group, whether it's their customers, their employees, or in that specific case, their investors?
Definitely. And I mean, in the end, also, I'm working for a company, so there's money involved. And that's the case, of course, with many things in the world. People have to want to buy certain things, and sustainability, I think, can play a role in there. But as I just said with the example of the apples, it also needs to still be affordable to people. It needs to be a product that people actually want to go out and either invest in or buy. And I think that processes there and creating transparency can really make a big difference in separating the actual sustainable initiatives, companies, organizations from greenwashing, because you have the facts there. One of the coolest things that I've ever seen in this regard that also inspired me was a very tiny organic berry farm in the US, teaming up with this tech startup from MIT, and they set up a blockchain to show to their customers that their entire value chain was sustainable, because they could track everything, and then they had the possibility to see where their berries came from exactly. And I thought that was super cool and very practical, because there were so many advertisements there saying, oh, get your vegetables here, sustainable fruits, go invest in your community garden. And one point I asked someone, how do you go to this garden? Yeah, and they all went by car. So it was every weekend there were 50 cars going there to pick the berries and then come back. So these kind of things you can only make transparent in logging them, in having your ways of working, in having your processes clearly defined, adhered to, and transparent. So yeah, I think it's a logical thing to combine the two.
Yeah, I would say so, but it was not really until I would say the last years, and I'm happy also to see that many companies really take the opportunity to see processes as a chance to improve, but also to prove in the end what they are doing and how they are doing things. So going in the right direction. Thanks for sharing all these sustainability thoughts. As I said at the beginning, we could talk for hours, but we need to dive, to go into the direction of the end of this interview. And I would have more of a personal question to you: is there someone, something, someone famous or a colleague who inspired you in your journey, in your learning journey, in your career journey?
Yeah, so I'll move a little bit to the side. Here in the background, I have a whole list of quotes that inspire me. And some of there's one from Britney Spears. There's one from Napoleon. Some of my favorite authors are in there. So I always try to keep my eyes and ears open. And I think you can learn something from everyone, because everyone has had a unique experience and a different perspective. Of course, there's people who inspire you more than others. I'm more someone who tends to look at the people in my direct surroundings and think, oh wow, you did super well. I can learn something from this, or I also want to achieve that. So not necessarily someone famous, but yeah, people in my direct surroundings that really inspired me to go for it and stay close to yourself.
Okay. Now I'm curious, what is this quote from Napoleon?
Maybe we should let people in the comments guess.
That's not bad. Yeah, exactly. And then you can solve that at some point. I like it. Okay, so that's the people who are inspiring you, yeah? So the people in your surrounding on how you want to go forward. But if you were to advise someone, let's say young women, what advice would you give her right now if she starts a career right now?
Yeah, I went to a workshop a few weeks ago at the office, and there was a young female intern, and I could tell that she felt a little bit uneasy, and I recognized some of myself because I do think that there's quite a cultural difference on how girls and boys are raised. I think it is changing, but I think some girls, they are a bit modest compared to boys when they start in their career. So I just took her aside, said, "Oh, you want to go for a walk?" So we did, and then I told her, don't be impressed by these people. At the end of the day, everyone goes home and they think, oh, today was a good day or it's a bad day, or I did this well, maybe I did do this a little bit less perfectly than I would have liked. But we're all humans, and everybody started, and you don't have to be so critical of yourself. So yeah, the advice that I would give young women is just do it your way. You don't have to fit in. Everyone is different, and you can only be you.
Yeah. Oh, I love this one. That's a good final word. And so before I close our session today, I'm curious again, and I have to add one question to my this or that game: is Netflix or books?
Ooh,
difficult.
Yeah, I think I found a way out recently, listening to audiobooks, because sometimes when you're in these video meetings all day, I don't really like to look at things at night, and then it's good to listen to audiobooks. But I prefer books, but I have to admit that I think I spend more time on Netflix than reading books.
Okay. That's honest of you in any case, so thanks for that. Marloes, I said I could talk for ages with you. Thanks for all your inspirational stories, everything you just told us today. So I think it's highly interesting to everyone to see the parallels between all these different activities you did, the different projects, and in the end, it's all about processes and about ways of working and the start and the end results. So I really love that. Thanks for that. Also for the sustainability insights. To everyone else who was listening to today's episode, thanks for being there. Thanks for following us. If you like it, talk about it. If you don't like it, tell me. And if you want to join this series, please reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can reach my colleagues. And I'm really happy to get to know new people I never heard about and who did great things in their specific careers and life. And I would like to really invite everyone who feels they can say something, they have something to say, to really join us. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. And thanks, Marloes, again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.